Get ready to rise above the noise and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift, the podcast that's all about keeping it real and helping you live your best life. Buckle up. Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on Unapologetic Uplift. New episodes released weekly.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I'm your host, Kim Staples, joined by my co-host, the one and only Ianthe Mauro. Today, we are diving into a juicy topic, and that is shame-proofing your life, shame-proofing your parenting by breaking cycles, simply by speaking the unspeakable.
Yes, so we talked about the word shame. And first, I want to say thank you all for being part of this podcast and in real time watching what it's like for two women who care deeply about self-awareness and having support for our nervous systems and love and all of the massive subjects you can imagine swirling right now in your head that you could bring up. We are very passionate about. And I want to first say, I did not like the sound quality of the last recording. So now I'm wearing this and I'm hoping that I'm coming in loud and clear and even better as we bring you this content. Sometimes I'm going to out myself right now on something. I get so into what we're talking about and I'm so committed to showing up to have these conversations with you, Kim, for everybody who's with us as well, that I don't always pay attention to those little technical things because I'm so in the creative and in the spiritual and in the emotional. And so that's my elephant reveal for the day, is that I know that sometimes I don't have all those ducks in a row. And so I apologize. And guess what? I don't feel ashamed about it. And that is the segue. That is the segue into what we're talking about today, because we were saying how shame is such a huge concept. And I want to dive right into something that came to me this morning. I often, and I wonder for everybody else and for you, Kim, when you happen to get your best downloads, is it when you're in the shower? Is it when you're driving in the car? Is it when you're listening to a certain song? Is it when you're taking a walk in nature? Well, for me, it can be any of those times, but it's often right when I wake up in the morning, before I'm like in that halfway, before I'm fully conscious. And I get this thought, and I often will grab a note to write it down so I don't forget it. And that's what I did this morning. And it was about shame because I knew we were going to be talking about this today. So before I say what my download was, I'd love for you to say anything based on all the things that I just said, because I want us to have a nice back and forth. So
for me, a couple of things. I have started keeping a dream journal. So before I get out of bed in the morning, I am trying my best to remember what I dreamt and journal on that, because there's a lot that comes through in our dreams that we can dissect. But also, my most powerful downloads can come through. Sometimes I get woken up in the middle of the night with them. I prefer not to. I try to set some boundaries around that. But during meditation and time where I'm just sitting in silence is definitely when they come in. I know everybody talks about the shower downloads. Shower's not a big one for me personally.
I've always, what happens to me in the shower? It's a big one for me in a very specific way. It's not that I get the most powerful ideas, but I have something that I remember that I have to tell my partner. I'm often going, I have to tell him that. And I'm often remembering that while I'm in the shower. And sometimes I'll even have to yell and come in here.
Yeah, I think because for a lot of people, getting in the shower is that time to decompress. And a lot of people will sit in the shower and relax, let the hot water run on them. I'm not that person. I'll do that in a bath. But for me, in the shower, I am focused on what I need to do. It's a process, right? Wash the hair, condition the hair, wash my face, shave. For me, the shower is not that place. But yeah, I love that things come to a lot of people in the shower.
My mom often said that when I was growing up, one of her common things to say is if I was in a bad mood, I'd had a bad day at school, whatever I was going through, she'd say, go take a shower because the water will readjust your aura.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
will use
water
that sometimes.
releases, oh yeah, water does release negative ions, and that will essentially create positive energy. So,
Yeah.
yes,
So back
very
to
true.
shame. So back to shame, the downloads that I had this morning. So I'm going to give you a couple of tidbits and then I'm going to hand it back to you, Kim, and see what you think. And then we can just continue our beautiful back and forth. So I got this idea is it's ego. Shame is ego. It's not virtuous. Shame is not sustainable. And the other one that I'm going to put out there before I take it to you is it's the energy of shame is selfish energy.
Mm. Yes, shame definitely is centered in the ego. And it's a really, really tricky one. Because the thing about shame is that it shames us. So it tells us that we can't talk about the thing. And this is actually how you know that something is shame. Sometimes it can be confusing. Like, what is this thing? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it shame? You know it's shame because you feel like you can't talk about it. And it's like, if people only knew this about me, they would harshly judge me. They would hate me, they would cancel me, they would, just think I'm this terrible human being. So we convince ourselves I can't talk about this thing, when in reality, the actual thing that heals shame is to speak about it.
Oh, I love that. It's true. And also I do want to say I threw those things out there, which were probably controversial to say. It's selfish to have shame because I want to just now go a little bit deeper into what I meant or what I really mean by that. The idea that it's selfish comes from the fact that when we indulge the shame, it's not that it's selfish to feel shame for a moment. We all get that. There's mortification in when we've done something that we're not proud of, or we've been around something we've witnessed and we maybe didn't act in a way that we wish we could have. It can easily become shame. Those moments, that's not what I'm talking about as selfishness. Those are moments of realization that you weren't able to show up as your best for whatever reason. It's when we hold on to that and we look at that as a virtue. I'm so ashamed. I'm so sorry. Oh, I. What's happening there is it's stopping your ability to see outside of yourself. How now, what are you doing with that? What are you doing with that? Now it's going into your body. It's creating all this spotlight on you and the thing that you're ashamed about. It's forcing other people to then feel like they have to caretake you because you're so freaking ashamed. And it can honestly, it can be a way to avoid the actual work of healing what it is that you did because you've this misstep. And all of a sudden you're finding yourself going, oh, I feel so bad. I'm so ashamed. I'm so ashamed, which is again, anytime that's happened. And I've done it. I used to do it. And I worked on this consciously years ago because my mother, and I love my mom so much, and she does so much work on herself. She's now 82 years old and still working on herself every single day. She is one of my heroes. And she taught me what not to do around shame by showing me this exact thing that I was doing. My mom did this so much when I was growing up that what I found happened, she would say, oh, I'm so ashamed. I'm the worst mom. I'm the worst parent. I didn't show up the way I should have. Ashamed. What happened to me then? It wasn't that I then thought, oh, thanks. I feel so relieved. I know that you now get it and you're owning your side of the street. No,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that. It was, oh no, mom, don't feel so bad. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to. And then I started hiding what I thought might bother my mom or point out to my mom what she was doing wrong because I wasn't safe to tell her mom that was fucked up because if I did, she would go into a shame spiral and I would lose her completely.
Not the best way to repair, for sure. And it's projecting the shame onto the other person. Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I kind of want to go down a rabbit hole on repair with your kids now. I'll touch on it very briefly. So just for anybody that might hear that and be like, well, I do say that to my kids sometimes because I do feel ashamed. And the whole reason that I wanted to have this conversation today about shame and breaking cycles is because as parents, we often avoid our shortcomings and our failures because of shame. And this can perpetuate cycles and patterns that are unhealthy and toxic. But when it comes to repair with your kid, it should never be about you and your feelings. It should always be about just owning the mistake and apologizing. So I'm sorry I behaved this way. I'm sorry I lost my patience. I'm sorry I didn't show up in the way that I should have. That has nothing to do with you and everything to do with me, rather than saying, I'm sorry I did this, but you shouldn't have done this, or I just feel so terrible. And then it's almost like we're parentifying and looking to be nurtured by the child, which is not what it's about. This is just us owning it and saying, I'm sorry I did this. It was inappropriate, has nothing to do with you, everything to do with me. I am going to work on showing up in a better way. It was inexcusable. It was not okay. I should never have said that, done that, whatever the case may be. And not to say that you can't feel shame or any way about it, but that's for you to handle on your own or with the support of somebody that can hold that space for you.
I love that reminder for everyone who's a parent or who's been, all of us are children of parents. So we've all experienced probably this in some way, shape, or form. So the other thing,
and
go ahead.
shame is sneaky. Like, it's really sneaky, right? So this is why it does keep us looping in cycles and patterns that are unhealthy. It whispers, hide it, bury it, and will tell us to maybe act in this way, or we'll do things to try and make ourselves feel better, almost like looking for validation, or can spiral a whole bunch of.
Yeah. And I think one of the signs, because we might not always say, I'm ashamed of myself. By the way, please, everyone, if there's one thing you can take away from today, please catch yourself if you start to say you should feel ashamed. You should feel ashamed. It's basically a spell you're casting on someone to not be well, to make them ill, because shame does cause inflammation in the body. And you're saying, I want you to be sick. So I'm just going to say that out loud. And there are a few scientists, doctors, psychologists who've done research around this, one of them being Dr. Will Cole, who's a functional medicine expert and had studied shame and actually made a term called shame-flammation because we do that. So catch yourself if you start to say shame on you. I mean, this is a very common old school way of parenting, and shame on you. You should be ashamed. Maybe look at that. Are you really wishing for that person to not be well? Because that's what it is, in effect. And the other thing to warn you about, just listen to your energy and listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth. When you say, I feel so bad, that is a sign that you're going into shame. And maybe, and of course, there are times when we feel so bad, but it's what do we do with that? Are you going to hang out in that space and cause that inflammation and cause that spiral and potentially rob other people of being able to feel safe around you to be who they are and imperfect? Or are you going to notice it, recognize it, and which I hope you will do, and instead of making yourself wrong around it, you say, okay, what action can I take right now that's going to clear this? What can I start to do that's going to get me out of this without making myself so wrong that I'm stuck in, like I called earlier, a shame spiral?
Yeah, addressing it is the key, bringing it to light, not avoiding it. So often, especially as parents, we tend to carry, I think, the most shame around things because we have so much responsibility for our kids. We are raising them and showing them how to be. We are responsible for these lives. And a lot of times the avoidance creates patterns and cycles that are so unhealthy. And then we see these patterns and it creates more shame and we avoid them, because if we shine the light on this pattern that has developed, it shines a light on us and our parenting and how we failed or how we taught them these things or how they've become this. And this is how cycles of addiction, mental health crisis perpetuate and are handed down from generation to generation.
Exactly. And there's a little voice that in me that was screaming, like imagining someone listening to this and thinking, but it's so weird to imagine. I just toss away shame. Like, I'm not going to feel ashamed because Kim and Ianthe said that that's selfish. So please don't take this as overcorrecting is the way, because that would be overcorrecting to say you'll never feel shame, you'll never feel bad about something, and it's not okay and not virtuous. No. Feeling. So I just want to go back to the kind of the landscape of this. So you do something that causes something that you do not feel good about. Recognizing that is very healthy. That is virtuous, to recognize that you are an imperfect being and you will make mistakes. How do you then deal? The next step is, what am I doing about that? And this is where you can go down one way, you go down one path, and it's, I am self-absorbed and all I'm doing is talking about how ashamed I am and I'm making sure that everybody knows that I feel bad and blah, blah, blah. The other direction is, wow, I must not be paying attention enough to my self-care, my healing. There's something I've missed. To be able to have stepped in that direction and done that, I do not feel good about it, and I'm going to do better. And seeking out people like Kim and working with them and just seeking out places like this podcast so you can listen to people talk about what it is to really work through this stuff and how to name it and move on in a positive way, in a good direction. What do you think, Kim? Because you looked like you had a little thought bubble over your head.
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking I have an exercise that I would like to share with people to help them be able to do the thing that heals shame, and that is speaking about it, not hiding, but naming the shame, like you were just talking about, is huge. Being able to see it, name it, just like our emotion, like any emotion, right? It's okay, I see this. This is what's happening. And just know that the more you want to hide, the more you're adding fuel to the fire that is shame, the worse you are going to feel. It is never going to go away by burying it deep. Once you address it and you speak about it and you stop hiding it, that actually transmutes the shame into power that allows you to be able to take action and find resolution. And it's scary. There's fear that comes along with that too. It's like, I don't know. How do I talk about this? Who do I talk about it to? And I'm the type of person that will come and talk about it on a podcast and publicly. And because we tend to have this fear around being canceled. If people knew this thing about me, they would think the worst about me. Everybody would hate me. They would cancel me. But spoiler alert, they can't cancel you, and there's nothing for them to, there's no dirty laundry for them to air when you've already put it all out there. So that's my approach to it. But talk about it. If it's something that you feel like you've done to somebody, talk about it with them. Address it rather than avoiding it. And this happens a lot in families. We try to brush things under the rug. And it's like, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. And this is super toxic has been a pattern in my own family. And it's like somebody does something harmful, hurtful, and we're really upset and maybe angry, and we have all of these emotions, and then we just don't talk about it. We brush it under the rug, and then we just let time take it away, and then come back, and this person's being really nice. So, well, they're family, so I should just forgive them, or I don't want to stir shit up and create drama. And then this person is dying inside with all of these buried emotions suppressed inside, and these toxic patterns and behaviors repeat. Mm-hmm. So we just talk about the thing, just bring it to light. So the exercise that I would love to share is called the 2 end of the stick. And the reason that I share this exercise is because it's so, so helpful in eliminating that fear in anything. You can use it to work through shame or anything that you're afraid of, really, you could use this exercise for. But what we do is, what is the worst case scenario? The absolute, and you get really graphic, use your imagination to the best of your ability. Make it like, if I talk about this thing, I'll use my own personal example from my own parenting journey. One of my sons struggled with his mental health and addiction. And I carried a lot of shame around that. I blamed myself for that. I didn't want people to know that we were dealing with this, because everybody was going to look at me and it's my fault. And they're going to know that I'm this terrible mother, and all the stories that we tell ourselves. So if we were in this type of a situation, we could say, okay, what is the worst case scenario if I actually start talking about this? Well, people think I'm a bad mom. People judge me harshly. Maybe it's so bad that people discover I'm such a terrible mother and they take all my kids away. Again, this is our imagination, right? So we're going into the worst case scenario. And then I lose everything and I get canceled. I can't ever get anybody to hire me ever again because I'm such a terrible mother and person, and I have done all of these terrible things. Everybody thinks I'm such a loser. We go down this and make it as dark as you possibly can. And then I become homeless and I become addicted to drugs myself, and just go there, as terrible as it can possibly be. And then on the other end of the stick, we want to look at the absolute best case scenario. And we want to use our imagination equally here. So it's like, I talk about this thing and shed light on this horrible situation, and other parents that are going through the same thing see me talking about this, and it inspires them to start working through their own shame and starting their own healing journey. And then they start healing themselves. And the trickle effects of that are their child heals and recovers from the mental health crisis and addiction. And they are breaking all of these generational patterns. And then they're so grateful for the work that I've done that they pay me millions and millions of dollars. They keep my photo on their fireplace mantle. And for generations to come, I am the person that broke the curse. So again, extreme, we want to look at both extremes. And the reason that we want to use our imagination and look so extremely at both ends is because it's not going to be either one of those ends. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. And when we've already looked at and accepted the absolute worst and the absolute best, nothing in the middle will ever faze us.
That is so good. Thank you for sharing that. Look what everybody gets on this episode. I love that. I have a therapist I saw years ago, and she gave me a similar exercise. It wasn't quite as fun as yours. Yours was really fun because of the extremes that you're taking it to. But the idea was, you say your biggest fear is, and making it realistic, like, well, I'm afraid that people will look at me like I'm a bad mom. And then her question to me would be, you just say the one thing, and she would say, so who are these people? And what if they look at you like you're a bad mom? What does that do to you? And I'd say, well, it may make me want to avoid them. Maybe they're not my people, but it starts to,
Totally. Yeah.
right? So you start to get back to the reality of what will really happen. And you just exercise all of those scenarios until you, like you said, then you're left with reality, and the reality won't hit you so hard because you've really worked on what are all the possibilities and variables. And that's the practice of revealing the elephant in the room, which is what Unapologetic Uplift Season 2 is all about.
Amen.
So that's
yeah,
how
and
you
it's
do
so
it.
true. When we look at, even when we don't get super dramatic with it, even when we just look at the realistic version of what the worst case scenario could be, it always ends up not being that scary.
And then trust yourself. Can I just say, how about everybody? How about do this? How about trust yourself that whatever comes your way, whatever happens, you are going to be able to handle it. And why would that be? It's because you are someone who, if you're listening to this podcast, you're someone who cares about your inner life. You have a beautiful imagination. You want to love yourself more, and you do love yourself, even if you can't admit it. You're being conscious about the friends you have around you. You are finding the good in the world and to balance the things that are very hard and tragic. You are flexible. You are resilient. You are capable of way more than you know. And I know this about you, or you would not be listening to up to this point. So trust that whatever comes, you're going to be able to handle it. And
And the
especially with
more
tools like yours, like you just gave, Kim.
and the
Yeah.
more you trust yourself, the more you allow yourself the opportunity to trust yourself, it just builds more trust. So it's a practice, right? Like we can take little baby steps in trusting ourselves, trusting our gut, and showing up for ourselves. And then the more we do it, the more self-trust we cultivate and the more self-confidence we cultivate in that practice.
And from that place, you're going to realize what a waste of time it is to go into a shame spiral. You're just going to say, whoa, this is a massive waste of time. And it does take some practice. I'm not going to say that immediately the next time you feel like, ooh, ouch, I feel so ashamed. You're not going to be able to instantly go, brush it off. That's a waste of time. But I do promise you that the more you start to look at what shame really is, what it does in the body, what is it useful for, which I don't think it's really useful for much at all. I do think that, however, and I use the term mortification, it's an old biblical term. There's a philosophy that in order to really grow spiritually, you have to go through a mortification. And that would look like a complete disturbance in the force of who you thought you were being and ripping that mask off and stepping into a way of being that's much more real. And that can feel so uncomfortable. And it honestly feels like I am mortified. I don't even recognize myself because I'm not playing this game anymore. But that's a really good thing. It's not the same as shame.
Yeah, and let's start with just offering ourselves some empathy, because you're not wrong for experiencing shame. And we tend to blow things so out of proportion, and we tend to think that like there's something wrong with us, or we are like this one person that is going through the thing. But the reality is, if you're going through something, there are other people going through it too. There are other people that have gone through it. And when you speak about it, you're able to find the proper support. The people that have already been through that thing, or the person that knows how to help you get through that thing. But really, just as always, as we always say here, be kind to yourself and show yourself empathy. We are all human going through this human experience. None of us are perfect. We have all experienced shame. We have all done things that we're not proud of. And That's what makes us human. That's what allows us to learn and grow and evolve. I wish that we could just eliminate shame for everybody. I really do.
I do too. And here's one way we can. This is a sort of an exercise. It could be a mantra. And it's the next time that you feel ashamed, like, oops, and you notice it. I feel so bad. I feel ashamed. Quickly say, oh, that means I'm becoming more self-aware. That means I'm growing. So the mantra would be, I am becoming more self-aware. When you feel that feeling of shame, because as soon as you do, that's going to completely change your body. When you say, oh, because you're giving yourself grace, you're showing yourself appreciation, you're honoring that, yeah, you made a mistake. And that means you're taking risks. You're doing things imperfectly and messy, which means you are definitely growing, because we fall all the time and trip as we're growing and trying new things. So just take a moment and definitely talk about it with someone you trust, so they don't just take that and use it against you. And if they do, they're not your circle. But
I personally wouldn't worry about that. I'd be like, go to social media, go live, go talk about the thing, and just make it public. And then nobody else can.
Yes. And I'm well aware that that's not for everyone. Kim and I will just talk on social media. We turn on the camera, we start talking. We do it here on the podcast. We are not self-editing, hopefully. I mean, we're consciously trying not to. We consciously want to show you what it looks like to live in real time, honoring what's really coming up for you in the moment. And that's what we're doing when we record this podcast. And like I said, that's what you will find on both of our social medias. And there are people that is definitely not for you. And you think about that and it cringes you out. And that's, of course, totally fine. So then I would just say, who can you go to? Who can you go to talk about it? Don't keep it inside just because you don't want to share it on social media.
Yeah, you're not meant to keep anything inside. You're really not. This is where anxiety stems from too. It's from learning and absorbing so much information and then doing nothing with it. This is why a lot of people that they want to be entrepreneurs or they set big audacious goals, they get stuck in the learning and they learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, and then they don't put any of that information to use. They don't share it. They don't talk about it. They don't take action. And it just creates so much anxiety.
Yeah. And there are some things that you will keep secret for a certain amount of time because you're processing them. So you don't have to constantly have like diarrhea of the mouth and like spew it. And if you don't feel comfortable talking on social media about the things that you're processing, or what, or revealing the elephants in the room on social media or on our podcast, because we will be having guests soon, then I would just say again, who is that safe person in your life that you can download with? And if you don't have someone like that's often a place where you could go to a therapist. I'm not a big proponent of talk therapy, but to be used for this reason, it could be very helpful. If you're someone who's very insulated, you don't have a lot of friends that you trust, and you also are introverted, it could be very helpful to find that person you trust, and you're paying them to listen to you without judgment and let you share whatever it is that's on your heart and mind, so it doesn't get stuck in your body.
Yeah, you need to find people that you trust. That's a whole other issue in itself. If you don't have anybody that you can talk to, share with, go join Facebook groups looking for people going through similar things or like-minded people. There are people out there for you.
Kim, what would you say if you were to describe what it looks like, the person that you're safe to share everything with, to out those elephants in the room, to help you get it out of your body? What are the attributes, traits? What is that person like? What do they look like? What do they sound like? What do they smell like?
They're safe. You feel safe with them. You don't worry that they are going to shame you, make your shame bigger. They're not going to harshly judge you. Someone that supports you. So you shouldn't have people in your circle that don't support you, that aren't.
But what does that look like? Because blind support is also not supportive. So no,
it's not. I think in our world, we are entrepreneurs, people that share your content, people that refer a friend to you, to your business, people that are going to speak your name in a room that you're not in, someone that is going to constantly toot your horn and tell everybody else how wonderful you are. If somebody that is going to defend your name again when you're not there to do it. If you don't feel like your circle would do these things for you, find a new circle.
And also the people that when you do, you feel like, okay, it's uncomfortable for me, but I am going to share this dark thing that I feel I did and I feel badly about. So it doesn't become shame on my body. And I'm going to share that. For instance, I can share that with you, Kim. And here's what it looks like. So if I share with Kim something that I'm not proud of, and let's say, I'll just give another example because we started talking about my mom and I love my mom. And by the way, she listens to this podcast. So shout out to you, Mommy, for allowing me to use you as an example twice in a podcast. And I know that you're okay with it. And I appreciate you so much. I have gotten impatient a few times lately with my mom, and I don't feel good about that. I want to have, and why would I want to have endless patience? Who has endless patience? Who's a frickin' saint? Nobody. But I still hold myself to a very high standard. So if I say to you, Kim, just as an example, I do feel badly that I have lost my patience with my mom a few times lately. Now, what would you say to that, Kim? Let's just show people, because that doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to admit that. And I don't want to lose patience with my sweet 82-year-old mom who's been really suffering and had gone through so many changes. Like the last thing I want to do is be impatient with her about how quickly she's getting into the car or whatever.
Yeah, your mom's amazing. She's lovely and you are human. And you're human. That's really all there is to it. I don't think that you need to beat yourself up about it. I think that owning it when it happens and apologizing and doing the repair, just like you would with a child. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have lost my patience with you. You're adjusting to being with your mom way more than you've been in years. She's lived on the other side of the country and now she's your neighbor.
Yes. And so that's what it looks like, people. It looks like I shared something I was uncomfortable about that I'm not proud of. And Kim, first of all, she was delighted in it and it made her laugh, which helped me to lighten it up. And then she reiterated and supported me in saying that I am human and that I can actually clean that up. So she didn't say, "Oh, you're not wrong," or no, nobody wants to lose their patience with their elderly mom who's just suffering through so many changes. But there are ways to clean that up. And then she reminds me of my tools. So that's what it looks like in real time to have a very supportive friend. And I want that for all of you. And until you find them, and maybe you already have them, and if that's the case, please let us know. We love to read comments. We love to hear how you're showing up in your life in ways that are the way that we are talking about and real examples. And we say this, our DMs are always open on social media. I think that you can leave comments on all the different platforms, certainly on YouTube, on our podcast. If you watch us there and listen to us, you can leave comments there. Tell us
and Instagram.
And Instagram, and just let us know how you're doing this in your life. Or you can say, I do have those supportive friends. Now, if you don't, lean on us, lean on Kim and I, at least while we're here together for this, however long. Sometimes we're here for 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes more. Just know that it's not, even though we're not sitting in the same room and we can't touch each other, it doesn't mean that our energy is not reaching one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that you feel our true desire to reach you on a soul level, on a very real level, even though we are on a podcast. It makes me tear up a little bit because I take that very seriously. I mean it. We don't want to just show up and have conversations. Kim and I can do that anytime. We want to share these conversations in the hopes that it uplifts you in some way. Unapologetic.
Yeah. And just talking about If you don't have your people, if you're surrounded by people that don't support you, if you're on a growth journey and self-development journey, there's really truly nothing more important than who you're surrounding yourself with. And this is a harsh reality. But if you surround yourself with people that drink every night, get high, party, live in victim mentality, aren't doing their best to take radical self responsibility and be the absolute best version of themselves, you are going to be doing the same thing and it's going to be normalized. You can't grow and evolve when you have people down here constantly dragging you back down. You have to cut ties with the toxic people in your life. And I will die on this hill. You cannot keep toxic people in your life. You need to release them, let them go, clear the space, and make room for the right people to come in, the people that are going to propel you forward and lift you up. It is absolutely critical that you surround yourself with people that are going to help you move forward.
Amen. Yes, yes, yes. And that is why I don't experience a lot of shame, if ever. I don't think I do. I experience, it's because I have these great circles of people around me. I am very, very discerning with who I give my time to. And I still have a few friends. I was like taking inventory as you were speaking, that I could say on the massive periphery. I used to talk about this, that there are different levels of friendship. I don't cancel people. I do protect my energy. And here's how I do it. I imagine a still pond of water, and I take a beautiful stone or crystal and I toss it into that water, and I watch as the circles start to appear. Now that first circle that appears where I threw the stone in, that's my inner circle. Those are my people who I will never feel shame around, because they will always find ways to help me work through that. They see who I really am. It's a very small, beautiful little circle. And then the circles continue to go out and out and out and out. So I haven't canceled. So they're these faraway circles, and those people might be drinking all night and partying and and wanting to make other people feel ashamed and feel ashamed about themselves. They're still there on the water, but I can barely see them. And unless I really they can't really get my attention. They can't really get to the stone, which is me in the center there. So it's okay. They can exist. We can all exist in the same water. This is at least my philosophy, but I don't have to have them affect my space. And that's how I deal with it. Because now there are people that I admire too that say, oh, I just completely cut that person off. And you've said this to me before, Kim. You'll just cut them off. You'll block them on social media. I want to say, because of course I'm going to be honest, and I have to remember, have I blocked anyone ever on Instagram? Because Instagram's my main place that I like to play. I don't think I've blocked. I think I have unfollowed. And I know on Facebook, it's nice to be the feature of muting, because I like to mute, because then it's not as abrupt, because then they can stay out there and they're that circle way out there in the distance, but they don't have to know that center stone, like cut them off. So that's fun. But yeah, I love everything that you said. And it's so true. So be brutally self protecting by surrounding yourself with people who raise the vibration, speak of you kindly in rooms you're not in, and have your back, like Kim said. I remember a definition of love once that said, because that's an interesting question. I love it when people, that's a great opener, by the way. If anyone wants a deep conversation, just say, how do you define love? Wow, that's a good one, right? Everyone has a different definition. But there was one I read, and it really struck me because it didn't have that romanticized version of explaining love. And it said that it was someone that has your back. It was that simple. And that really hit me. And I feel the same as you're looking through your friend circle. Who really has your back? And what would that feel like if you surround yourself with people who really did have your back? So that means you can make a mistake, you can mess up, you can do something that you don't feel good about. You can do something they don't agree with, and they still have your back. And what does that really feel like?
Yeah.
I
It's
want
so
that for
true. So,
everyone.
so important. Yeah. And I am ruthless when it comes to my inner circle. You like, I will block, delete, goodbye. Not to say that I don't have those, like you talked about, those other circles. But if you're in my inner circle, like you're not getting in there easily to begin with. And then if you're in there and you do something to show me that you don't belong, you're going to be outed. No shame in my game. Like,
Yeah.
you're out. And that's not to say that I don't have empathy and I don't understand people being human, but if you don't have my back, if you genuinely are not prepared to defend my name in a room that I'm not in, you can't be in this circle.
Yeah. So let me go back to my notes really quick to say the things that I woke up with this morning and make sure I hit them all. I just want to say, okay, shame, it's ego. When you indulge it, it can become, it's not virtuous to indulge shame. Doesn't mean you can't feel it, recognize it, but what do you do with it then? And I say, you trick yourself into thinking that if you feel ashamed or remorseful, you're owning your side of the street and taking responsibility, but you're not. You're just feeling the shame, and that will stop you actually from taking good actions, and it pulls focus into places that are very negative rather than the positive, in my opinion. And then I talked about how that shame shows up as selfishness, and again, and then it creates a focus on self that isn't healthy, causes inflammation in the body that's measurable scientifically. So we
Mm-hmm.
want to stop saying shame on you and to ourselves. And then it just means you're thinking too much about your past actions and not standing in the truth of how you can grow and act from a higher place and forgive yourself quickly for those missteps so you can get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. All excellent points, excellent takeaways. Shame keeps us silent. Silence keeps us stuck. And even though it's scary, addressing and speaking about the shame rather than avoiding it is what breaks cycles and creates a new blueprint for your family and generations to come.
And don't let other people, I mean, here's a beautiful thing to look out for. Beautiful is a funny word to use for this, but I want you to look out for this. If there's someone in your life who is consistently telling you that you need to feel ashamed, that
Ugh,
is someone you do not, that's not someone for that inner circle, please. They need to be in the furthest circle possible. That is so unhealthy.
that's a block, delete immediately.
Absolutely. And that's, yeah. And Kim and I have both had people like that in our lives before.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're vicious about not allowing that anymore. And
Yeah,
in
because
fact,
we've lived with the effects of allowing people like that to be in our lives. And it's toxic and it causes illness and disease. And we've been sick from
yes, we've
it.
both been physically sick. It reminds me of a story that could sound like nothing, but it was part of the abuse that I suffered in my first marriage was that I was constantly being told I should be ashamed at how I spent money or looked at money. And it was, and I believed it at the time because I was raised with a lot of financial insecurity, massive financial insecurity. And so I didn't feel worthy of when we had money and we made a lot of money. I was so uncomfortable that I would go to spend something and I already was feeling shame. And then my ex-husband would tell me that I should feel ashamed because I didn't check the price and I didn't find the cheapest one and I didn't do my due diligence with the money that we had. And it got so bad that did create illness in my body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just one of the reasons, but that was really there. And I think that helped me heal. I mean, I can always say, I think these hard things show up as our greatest teachers. He was one of my greatest teachers because he taught me that I actually could heal that part of me that felt shame around that and then have a good relationship with money, or at least one that I knew I could have a good relationship. Even if I wasn't able to always have a good relationship with it, I knew that it existed. The possibility of having a good relationship with money existed, and I was going to be able to tackle that in this lifetime. So thank you. Thank you for that wonderful message. And I'm never going to feel ashamed again about anything I decide to spend on, period. And I think around money, shame comes up very quickly and easily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that is one that tends to be cyclical in nature and passed on.
And a tip, one of the things that I taught my kids in order to break this pattern and not have them have this bad relationship with money was to teach them that, so let's say we couldn't, so growing up, I was always told we can't afford that, we can't afford that, we can't afford that. The conversation in the house was always, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough money. That wasn't the case when I was raising my children. We had plenty of money for things. However, I made a conscious decision. There were some things, of course, we weren't going to spend money on, but I always made a conscious decision to never say in front of them, we can't afford that, even if we couldn't, because what I would say instead was, we don't choose, or I'm not choosing to use our resources for that today. And that was a very different way of looking at it. And then my children now, they're way healthier than I ever was with their relationships with money. They both have savings accounts. They both have steady incomes. They're in their 20s, early 20s, and they are doing amazing things very responsibly. And they can also have fun with their money and not make themselves wrong for it. So I feel like I did a good job. I'm going to pat myself on the back for this, but I really consciously did work on this before having children. And then when I had my children and they were young, you never heard me say out of my mouth, we can't afford that. It was always a choice. And I know that I'm in a privileged place to say it was a choice, but it's also a psychological trick to get them to not feel fear around financial insecurity. So there's a lot there, but it's all around that shame thing. I didn't want my kids to own that. I didn't want them to inherit that crap.
Yeah, good for you.
And I'll check in with them and see if they did or not. I think they don't, but I should check in. I got to revisit that.
Love it. Well, I think that we have covered a lot today, and we've shared some valuable tools with our listeners. And we encourage you guys to share this episode with a friend, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and like everything there. We will be back next Wednesday to talk about something juicy and exciting, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on Unapologetic Uplift. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share the love and tell a friend about us, and give us a review.
Please don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast and explore our sponsors, Objects with Purpose Eco Luxury Candles and Divine Activation membership.
Objects with Purpose is more than an eco-luxury candle brand. They are time travel devices in the form of a candle. Light the 3 wicks representing past, present, and future with the validation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're ready to raise your level of consciousness and step into your unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era, join the Divine Activation membership at cuttingties.coach/queen. With 3 tiers to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit to support your transformation.
Thank you for your listening and love. We'll see you next Wednesday on Unapologetic Uplift.
Welcome to the Divine Activation membership, a movement for women that are ready to raise their consciousness and step into their unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era.
With your heart, live authentically, and become the magnet for all of your soul's desire.
Grow, connect with your heart and body, release unhealthy and unhelpful thought patterns, heal old wounds, create new neural pathways, and reprogram your subconscious with high-value beliefs.
so you can manifest the life you're meant for.
Ready to take a break from what's holding you back? Visit cuttingties.coach and join the Divine Activation membership today. Hey, unapologetic souls. I'm Ianthe Mauro, founder of Objects with Purpose, candles that touch the soul and the body. I've released a limited edition 3-wick candle collection in 3 fragrances inspired by a time in history. The Time Travel Collection, because scent evokes memory and lighting a candle can truly transport you to your highest self. Anytime.
Ianthe's candles are truly special. Clean, safe, even for the body, as a solid perfume or massage oil, and smell amazing. But what truly fills her heart is empowering others to be seen in their best light.
In 2020, when the 200 stores that sold my candles across the country closed their doors, I knew it was time to give back. I started guiding others to launch their own candle companies and design candles and fragrances for other brands as a way to share light in a dark time.
So why settle for just any conventional candle? Light the 3 wicks in each Objects with Purpose candle. You're supporting handmade in California, small batch, artisanal, eco-luxury, and treating yourself to a memory-evoking evolution. Visit ianthemauro.com to discover your next favorite candle. Let the olfactory experience inspire cherished memories.